Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and get started with this session. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We're going to have some more people joining in later, but appreciate everyone joining. And first, we'd like to start off with brief self-introductions. So we have Moni Lashes, Eki'Shola and Michelle Rounds as panelists. Moni, just give us a quick introduction if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'm Moni Lashes. I'm the drummer of an Australian band called The Babes, and we've been fortunate enough to tour a few international places, and Japan is one of them. So I'm really glad to be part of this panel.
Great. So next, Eki'Shola.
Hi, my name is Eki'Shola and I hail from California, although I spend half my time here in Japan working both as a physician and a musician. And it's good to be here and to meet you all.
Great, thank you for joining. And Michelle.
Hi, my name is Michelle Rounds. I was born in Australia, but my background is Pacific Islands. I'm a jazz singer, quite reasonably well recognized in where I come from, the Australasian Pacific area. But I haven't spent much time in Australia where I was born. I've spent more time in Japan, and I went there firstly to sing jazz, and that's pretty much all I've done when I've been there. So I'm now based in Egypt and heading back to Japan in October for the Kansai Music Conference. Woohoo!
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to start off first with a basic question regarding cultural differences. So what do you see as the kind of the biggest difference between your own culture and like Japan, the Japanese culture, specifically regarding music scene? Let's start with Moni.
So for me, the thing I've noticed, our band has been fortunate to tour Japan 3 times now. And maybe, I don't know if it's genre specific, but we're a rock band. And the main difference I've seen between Australian and Japanese, well, not just Australian, worldwide and Japanese audiences is the complete loyalty that Japanese fans have to the genre of hard rock. Mainly, say you're an opening band for a gig one night, the crowd members will actually be front row before you start your set, like eagerly awaiting you to play, and they will be there supporting you from the start to the end of that set, regardless if they know your songs or not. And they just really get into it and really give you the chance to win them over. And it's also just like just a feeling you get when, even with the language barrier, after you finish your set, Japanese fans and supporters are just willing to be long-term supporters. So they'll come and buy your merchandise and they'll support you on social media and they'll create those long-term partnerships. So I don't know if that's genre specific for just like rock and hard rock and metal, but that's something that we found, and we've been able to create a little market continually going back to Japan based on just the Japanese loyalty to rock and roll.
Okay, great. Next, Eki.
Yeah, I just recently started performing here in Japan, and I'm be doing my first tour in October after I've been doing some recording of my 5th album with some local Japanese artists. And what strikes me the most is, as a musician, I'm a solo artist. I sing and play keyboard, but I make my own beats, bass, and all of that, and produce. And I don't fit into one genre. So it's like jazz, classical, electronic, R&B, feel good, chill. And one thing that I find hard sometimes in California is having to select a particular genre when you're like applying to venues to perform at, and kind of feeling constricted and limited within that. Whereas the times that I've played in Japan, it's amazing. I mean, they don't know who I am. I mean, it's the first time that they're hearing me play, but yet people will listen intently and will interact and will dance and will come up and talk to me. And it's that palpable connection despite language barrier that has been really striking. And it's really encouraging. So, yeah.
And Eki, by the way, is currently in Japan. Oh, where are you in Japan right now?
I was in Yokosuka and I flew down to Okaima. So I'm in
Okay.
now Ushimado.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And Michelle, how about your opinion?
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you, with Moni and Eki. And Moni, I don't think it is genre specific, not at all, because as I said, in Japan, I mean, I do world music outside of Japan, but not in Japan. And when I'm there, it's all jazz. And the jazz singers in the area that I'm working in, all the jazz singers, Japanese jazz singers will come and they're front row and they're recording.
Yeah.
And I've heard people doing gigs, and some of the guys have given me stuff and said, "Oh, listen to this person." I went like, "Wow, that sounds like me." And he said, "Yeah, she learned your scat. She learned your scat, recorded me and learned the scat and repeated it." I don't have it. There's no higher honor in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so they not only respect you for what you do, but they actually come to learn. And as Eki said, there's that staunchness, you know, they just really follow you. They love what you do. I mean, people cry in my gigs, you know, and that's not because I suck. They're crying because they're feeling it, they're loving it. They come up after the gig, they hug me. They're very tactile with foreigners, but not with each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I find that they seem to need that. That has been really powerful in my experience. I've found that they really need to be able, and they do it quite openly, comfortably. They'll come up, hold me, and sort of put their arms out, and I'll hold them, and they'll cry, and they'll sort of release, and all this sort of stuff's going on. But they'll never do that with their best friend who's standing next to them. So we kind of have a different role, not just in the music, but also in the healing kind of, I mean, music is healing. So, so yeah, basically it's a yes to all the things that these ladies have just said. Amazing.
Right. Actually, gospel music is one of the more popular forms of music in Japan, simply because it has that emotion, that deep felt kind of healing touch that Japanese are really able to absorb and identify with. So staying with that, what do you see as an entertainer that you can use that kind of connection to expand your career further? For example, Moni was saying, you know, bring merchandise and sell. What do you think can be grabbed from that to kind of push your career further in Japan? Go back to Michelle with that.
I think basically what you've said, you know, you can sell merch. I'm not big on selling merch. I prefer to leave that to my management and stuff. I don't kind of want to run around selling stuff at the gig, but it works. You know, some of the big names in jazz that I've been with at the Blue Note and stuff like that, man, they got the tables set up. And Mike Stern, who's an amazing guitarist, he stood, and this was a lesson I learned as well. He just stood there and he gave each person, there was a queue, massive queue. All of them had bought the CD, were wanting him to sign it. And he stood and he said to each, "Hi, thank you so much for coming. And what's your name?" Now, I personally would have been like, "I've got to get through this. Oh, thank you. Okay, great. Thank you. Bye." Ding, 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 ding. I would have done that. He didn't do it. He didn't do it. He gave each person respect and looked at them. Didn't look at the queue, looked at that person. I mean, that was massive. That was a massive lesson. And I feel that that's the type of thing you want to do, cultivate. Because as Moni said, those are your followers, man. That's your Instagram and your Facebook and your YouTube, you know.
Right. Eki, since you've been here so much, can you speak to the kind of the physical relationship connections that are really so important here in Japan?
Duane, it's crazy. It's been a like a journey of synchronous events. Like the shifts that have occurred within the short period of time I've been here would have taken maybe months back home in California. So, for example, I'm performing in Yokohama in October. What I try to do is on my prior visits, I'll go and introduce myself in person to the venue owners. So I went and I introduced myself, and of course, he said, "Go play." Felt like I was being auditioned. So, so be ready to perform. And so I played, and after I just, did a few songs, I sat back at the bar as a jazz keister, and the owner, he said, "Here, speak to my friend." And it was his friend on the phone who was a former Sony exec who's managing big name. When I asked her, I nearly fell off the chair, but big name international artists and bringing them to Japan to tour. So that's who I was talking to. And so those are the kind of experiences that have been happening continuously. And it's new to me because in the States, there's almost this sort of this cloaked, what do you say, this kind of hierarchy, right? And if you're not signed by a manager and you're an independent artist, it's hard to know who to speak to and how to get to where and how to navigate all that without any sort of formal mentorship. So I've just been so impressed and so thankful of all the connections that have been occurring in such a short period of time here in Japan.
Right, and since you are basically in and out of Japan like regularly, that's something that a lot of people don't recognize. The regular trips to Japan, the consistency is what really helps develop that relationship.
Yep, that's it.
Just coming here once and then expecting something to happen doesn't work.
Correct.
Moni, so I actually was not aware that you guys have been here 3 times already, or really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that was we started getting some consistency, as you were saying, and it really started snowballing for us. And then, just like everyone, the pandemic hit and put the brakes on that for us. But yeah, back to what you were saying, what the other ladies were saying as well. Just apart from merch, there's other things we can do also. Like after the first tour to Japan, we noticed that we suddenly had a nice following in Japan that we weren't aware of. So the next tour there, we had made so many friendships and long-term connections that we brought just like small little knickknacks, souvenirs. We made little koala bears with our band logo jackets on them. So it's just like handmade. It's worth nothing, but the time invested was worth something. And so we gave them to a whole bunch of people who would come and buy our merch, or just people who bought tickets to come see us. And so that just further, incentivizes the back and forth relationship, where they're giving us their support and we're trying to give them more than just a rock and roll show. But it's just things like that the Japanese really appreciated. Well, that's what we found anyway. And then you've got people who are making gifts for us. There's like a fellow in Tokyo who is a flag craftsman, and he hand painted a giant Japanese flag with our band logo on it. And it's just like, I've got 2 guys in our band and they're quite tough looking and they're 6'4", but that brought a tear to their eye. But yeah, things like that. I just think that there's ways that you can create more than just the performance. It's like the ladies were saying, it's an experience. It's not just music.
Right. In general, Japanese are very appreciative of the effort. It's like it's all about putting in the effort. If you put in the effort, then eventually results will develop. So that's kind of a lot of what's important here in Japan. Before moving on, Michelle, so how long were you in Japan for? How many years?
A total of 5, to be honest. And I was contracted. So that's how it works for jazz singers, musicians. We just get contracted. It's 6 nights a week, working with local musicians, brilliant musicians. And the way it came out, just going back to what Eki was saying about, kind of auditioning, I would do the gig at night. And all the club owners would come on different nights, because they were all kind of cliquey and a little bit, competing with each other. But on different nights, they would come in and they would sit in the bar, drink up, watch the thing, and then they would book me. So they were coming to check out, is she any good? If she's good, I'll book her. I mean, those friends, the hotel I was at, of course, the management changes and all that sort of thing happened. But those bar owners, they're my family. They're still my family right now. When we head back, I'll be gigging at their places. They were massive, So, and that was Kyushu. It's very different. Kyushu's country. I forgot the question. What was the question? Duane? Sorry, I'm a lot older than these ladies. I have moments.
No,
Yeah.
it's no worries. Yeah, you basically answered it. No problem at all.
Yeah, and yeah, it was Kyushu. Very, very different dynamic. Very different dynamic. Very different people. Yeah, but as everyone said, they totally appreciate effort. If you're good and you're giving your all, they know it. They feel it. You're gonna be booked. You know.
Right. So since you're all veterans here, what? Well, okay. First, what shocked you? Like the first time you were like, huh? That's what they do in Japan, or what was like the most surprising?
The time. I'm sorry, ladies. I said my bassist said, "I'll pick you up." He wrote a message. "I'll pick you up at 3:57." I was there. I got in the car. I said, "Don't you ever do that again. We don't do that. We're musicians. Don't you ever say 3:57 again. You can say 3:40, maybe before 4 o'clock, but don't you ever do that again." That was it. We left it. That was too much.
Very time. However, so since you said you haven't been in the Kansai area, in Osaka, people are just like kind of similarly, but it's like the train's 1 minute late. Rawr! It can't be 1 minute late. It's very uptight about, everything has to be specific and right according to plan. If it's
Punctuality.
not, exactly.
And I think you in the Kansai area, you probably have more people speaking English. I had nobody. Two of my bassists had some English. I learned to count to 169 in Japanese first thing I ever did, because I had 169 jazz standards and they were all in the book, and I would call the number out in Japanese and the guys would go tick, 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 bang, and they would play the song. That's how we did it.
Wow.
Yeah, amazing. No English.
Eki, how about you?
I think what caught me off guard was it was just a few days ago, actually. Went to a live house in Yokohama, and they were having a jazz session, and they invited me to sing or play. And I'm thinking jazz improv, and I don't do covers. I do all originals. I have nothing against covers, but I kind of came to the music professionally at a later age, and so I feel like I need this time to develop my own style, if you will. So they asked me to pick a cover. I looked through that book. I was sweating because I didn't know any of the songs, at least, and there were no lyrics. So I mean, so I said, "Can we just jam? Like give me a beat, bass, drop this." And he said, "No, no, 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 you have to pick a cover." So I was a little surprised because, for me, jazz equals improvisation, but that was sort of not the, I guess, I wasn't expecting that. I really thought we would be able to kind of riff and jam. So the takeaway from me is like, I have to go back home now and learn some standards so I can communicate.
Standards is the name. There are no covers in jazz. No such thing. There's standards. They want them in the right key, and they want them played the way that they're written.
Right.
No covers in jazz, guys. Please don't say it.
Oh, no
so
cover
he's
standards.
in Japan. No. There's standards. So you got standards, you got your originals, you got a whole bunch of genres within the genre. And the Japanese are very particular about that. Very particular. I had a guy call out Lush Life. I never even learned the song, but I learned it quickly. But that's high level jazz. A lot of jazz singers won't even touch it. So I'm doing a whole bunch of stuff that my contemporaries, say in Australia, aren't touching. They don't go there. They don't need to go there. But Japanese know it. They know it. They know how it should go. They know that, and I love that. That just pushes me, man. I love it.
One thing for any musician who's coming to Japan and they'd like to hire Japanese musicians, bring charts. Japanese need it written out. They do not play by ear. They're absolutely fantastic musicians, but they need charts. So If you bring anything, bring charts. Moni,
Wayne,
how
can
about?
I add to, I'm sorry.
Sure, yeah, sure. Go
I
ahead.
just want to add something quickly. So I came down to Shimada to record with a local Japanese drummer who's phenomenal, and a shamisen player, and a gentleman who plays a Mongolian Morin Kerr. I did not bring charts. So they were looking at me like, what do we
Yeah.
do? And I said, I want you to listen. I want you to feel the beat, and there's no right or wrong, and make it yours. The outcome was amazing. They were shocked. They were just like, we've never done it this way before. And they said, thank you so much for opening our eyes to that. So it came out really beautifully.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they all panicked, like, no
Oh, they
charts.
did. They did.
But it's a really good push, and it's an education. I would often say to my musicians, how many times have you played Autumn Leaves? 700, 800 times? Just close the book, baby. Just close the
Yeah.
book and
Yeah.
just play it for me. Watch me. I'm the one. Those things on the paper, that's not telling you what to do.
Yeah.
I'm telling you what to do. I'm going to show you where the bridge is. I'm going to show you where the chorus is. You got to follow me, not that. If a fly craps on your score, are you going to play it? You know?
Right.
But in a very gentle way, because they're very sensitive, you know, but very gently, just try to encourage them to get off the book. Just get off the book, you know. Be yourself, be you, and be me, you know. But yeah, I totally agree with you, Eki.
Moni, how about you?
So the thing that probably has shocked me the most, that I can think of, is the very first time we ever went to a venue to load in and to set up. Firstly, that was so much more organized than anything we'd ever experienced, and everything was to a schedule, and the equipment was well looked after, and there was no terrible house kit. But the most like positive, shocking thing that I experienced with it was, once everything was set up, the sound tech of the night got all of the band members, all of the stage crew in a circle, and we all introduced each other, you know, like ourselves to each other, and then everyone bowed and onegai shimasu to each other, and it was just like mind-blowing because it's just instantly we all had a rapport with each other, and there was nothing there was no ego, there was nothing that we might experience in other places. That would just never happen in Australia. At a 4-band rock gig, there would not be a circle of us all, you know, nodding to each other and having mutual respect, because half the bands would be late, half the bands would have forgotten their gear. So that's just one of the things that I love, but also shocked me about Japan.
Right. That is, it doesn't happen at every gig, but it definitely is a standard, and it's just part of the teamwork effort.
Yeah.
You get together in Japan and you work as a team to put on a good show, to create a good product, to develop a good service. It's all about teamwork. So, and
it worked.
right, exactly, and that's what it's about. I have a quick question. What is the usual hospitality at venues in Japan? Hospitality, meaning what? Ed, you can turn your mic off if you want real quickly and just.
Sure. Hi. Very interesting what you guys are saying. I'm actually making lots of notes here. What I mean by hospitality, I mean, you know, when you set in is, someone, for example, telling you where the water is, so you can get some, you know, sometimes, for example, my setup could be, depending on what we play, it could be quite complex. And, I just wanted to know what, if you play in a venue, is if you're going to be there for a few hours, are you going to be able to say, hey, can I have a drink? Or, is there any chips, if there's such thing, or, maybe some sashimi.
Like a rider.
Okay.
I don't know what it would be.
Yeah. All right.
Pretty
Okay.
normal, I mean,
Well,
you're not, first of
a lot
go ahead,
depends on.
sorry.
No worries. A lot depends on the type of venue. So, Michelle, I'll let you speak on jazz venues real quickly.
You're going to know with a jazz venue, you're going to know everything. You're going to know when your meal is going to be set. You're going to take breaks. We don't do more than a certain amount of time anyway. So I'm never there for hours. That's not going to happen unless I'm watching somebody else doing stuff. And you will also be given a lot of stuff. You'll be given water, and you'll know whether you're paying for things or whether you're not. It'll all be commensurate to what you're earning, you know. So that's just in the jazz thing. We're pretty well looked after, I can honestly say, but worldwide we're well looked after, in my opinion. So yeah.
One thing to mention, Michelle was hired under contract. So if you're a jazz musician just kind of stopping in Japan, your experience is going to be different. You'll be given, you know, the water. Some venues may give you a complimentary meal, but in general, you come in, you play, and you're out. Moni, how about sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
Michelle.
sorry, I was contracted, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about all the gigs in between.
Oh, okay.
So just all the jazz gigs, all the clubs, they all tell you, and we always get a meal. I don't know if that's not standard up in the northern part, but in Kyushu, and there's a huge after party afterwards as well. It just seems to be standard.
Right.
So at the end of the gig, everybody goes and eats somewhere else as well. So yeah, just a little differentiation.
Okay. Moni, how about in your experience for rock gigs?
In Japan, we generally looked after. You get your water. There's always bottles of water ready backstage. And I'm just trying to think, actually, from memory, because we're not really big drinkers anyway, our band. But I'm pretty sure we always have like an allowance to go to the bar if we want to get a couple of drinks each. But I've always felt looked after. I've never thought, oh, you know, this is a bit on the cheap side. I've always felt looked after, no matter where I am in Japan.
Right. Eki, before you get to that, I first visited Japan in '97, and I came back in '98, and I came back a third time in 2000. And then I moved to Japan in 2001. So the first 3 times that I visited Japan, you know, I had my friends and guests buy me dinner and buy me, you know, souvenirs for other people, and just over and over, I'd come with a certain amount of money and would go back home with having spent only like 20% of that money. But someone told me all that ends after you move to Japan. And certainly enough, it did. Yes. When they realize that you're here to stay, it stops.
Oh.
So Eki, do you like have a lot of people like treating you here and buying you this and giving you that and so on?
Yeah, I just got back from somewhere, and then someone gave me a little homemade purse. People are just very generous here. I mean, you know, in the States, same thing. You get your meals and whatnot, but it seems to have a little bit more of a communal feel here. Like after, I remember one show, like they set up my whole keyboard and everything, and I was little disoriented because it's different than the way I normally set it up, and I do it usually myself. But it was really sweet, and you know, afterwards, you know, like Michelle was saying, we all had a meal together, which was really nice and yeah, touching. But I figured though, Duane, I'm going to live here part time so that those connections and that hospitality won't stop.
Exactly. Yeah.
Come and go, keep it going.
Yeah. If you're full time, then forget it. So I want to move on to another question, and that is, what do you wish you had known before you came to Japan? That like advice you would give to people that you didn't know. Let's start with Moni.
Oh, things that I wish that I knew. Oh, the main one is that trains end at midnight in Japan. We learned that the hard way on our very first night in Japan when we were about 2.5 hours away from our accommodation and had to walk all the way home. So yeah, my advice is either make it an all-nighter or plan ahead.
Okay. Yeah, train service basically stops at midnight. Some trains, they stop leaving, like they're leaving from their destination at midnight. So it would continue possibly until like 1 or 1:30. But yeah, in general, you need to be ready by midnight. Eki, how about you? What would you suggest?
Two things. I wish I had bought enough CDs with me, because even when you're just introducing yourself, sometimes people say, "Can I have your music?" And my first thing is Spotify or iTunes, but they're asking for vinyl or CD. So definitely to make sure to have that ready. And then the second thing is, I wish I had known that it's easier to perform here than I had told myself in the past. So all these years I've been like, oh, I'd love to go play in Japan, but, but. And then now here doing it, I realize it's way more, it's a much more smoother process than I had anticipated.
So by that, you mean like because of the language or culture or just?
No, just the connectivity, the connections with people. Like, recording an album here has been significantly cheaper than if I were to do it stateside. So
Wow.
cost-wise, everything, save the airfare, everything else has been significantly more affordable than
Wow.
doing it back in California on all levels. So
Okay. Michelle, how about you?
Probably the language, I wish I'd learned it sooner. I didn't have anything. I just knew like sayonara and arigato, that was it. But, I picked it up quickly and I learned to read and write. But because I was in such a remote area, you need to have the language. But if you're just coming in, there will always be translators. You'll be assigned somebody and things like that usually happen. Japanese are just so kind and so thoughtful and so caring, and they'll do anything to help you. That's what I find. And also, as Eki said, because I released 2 albums in Japan, man, that was just too easy. If I go back and do more, it's like, whoa, and Jazz Rack is great because as an Australian artist, Moni, you'd know we're with APRA, you know, and then when you release in Japan, you just use Jazz Rack and they're kind of affiliated. Oh man,
Wow.
super
There
duper.
you go.
Yeah. Think about it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about any of this.
There you go. Yeah.
So I had someone write inquiring about artist visa. Have any of you come to Japan on an artist visa?
Yes, of
Michelle?
course. Yeah, because of I was contracted, so I had
Contracted,
to
right.
come on artist visas. Now the artist visa, I'm not sure how it works now, but at the time that I was there, it was you have to earn a certain amount of money. So even if they're not paying you that, they need to write that in the contract. And just being very open here, I was actually paid what was written in the contracts, but I'm just saying this for general because they want it all in a specific way. You can't just make it up. It's also under the same visa as the ladies of the night. So it's an entertainment visa, which means you will not get it for more than 6 months. And then you need to renew it. So you either leave the country or you go somewhere and renew it. Now, if you're an English teacher, you can get a 3-year visa. But I never got that because I wasn't going to be teaching English. So it was always a 6-month. I would shoot back after 3 months. I would go back to Australia. I'd renew the visa and I'd come back. I did that constantly, but it was paid for. So when I came in without a visa, I was never questioned by anyone. I just gig. And even now, I go through the Japanese embassy here in Egypt, where I live. And they just grant, I tell them we're going to do a festival here and blah, blah, blah. And usually those things are free. They're not ticketed. So people are coming for free. And then they just, yeah, great, go do it, and they know I'm going to gig. They know I'm gigging on the side. They know that.
Yeah.
But it really isn't like a big, it's not a big deal, not Michael Jackson, we're all just, it's not undercover, but we're all just doing it. And they really kind of know, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Right.
I never heard anybody getting busted for singing a song somewhere.
Right, exactly.
Mm.
One thing about Japan, which is kind of similar to other countries, but especially regarding entertainment visas, as Michelle said, if you're coming and you're contracted for basically you're sponsored by a company, you must have an entertainment visa. They give you all the paperwork and certificate of eligibility and so on and so forth. And you're getting at least like a minimum of, for example, $500 US dollars per performance. If you're coming just to perform at a few clubs, you cannot, even if you tried your hardest, you cannot get an entertainment visa because you have to reach a certain level, minimum level. And then what is really confusing for most people is the Japanese law, and lawyers and immigration officers and everyone will tell you you cannot come to Japan and play without a visa if you're playing at a venue that has like a ticket price. If you're playing at a place that has a ticket price, you have to have a visa. But they don't stop you. So it's one of those things that are actually legal, but you're allowed to do it. So regardless of what you see on the internet or what people have told you and so on and so forth, you can come to Japan legally and play and, you know, possibly make a little bit of money. But the thing is, don't advertise that. Hey, I went to Japan and I got play, you know, I got this. You don't want to do that because it, you know, draws attention. But in general, Moni, since you've been here 3 times, did you ever consider like a visa? She's like, no, no, no.
We were never on the threshold of that side of it, and we would always we were under the like showcasing kind of headline, which is what one of our like advisors, like the tour manager, was advising us that when it's a showcase, there's some kind of like loophole for that. So yeah, I mean, when we do the next main tour there, who knows what kind of avenue we're going to have to go down, because once you keep steamrolling, if you start getting noticed, then you don't want to start stepping on toes and getting in trouble. But for the past ones, we've been okay.
Right, right. Generally, yeah, there are thousands and thousands of musicians who come to Japan without visas, so it's not
Yeah.
a big deal.
Of course, marriage is the other thing. They told me, Michelle, you must marry with Hide, who was like younger than my son. Just marry with him, marry with him. And I'm like, okay, guys, thank you. But yeah, we might just pass on that one. But a lot of the male musicians do. They just marry. And then that makes it a whole lot easier for them if they're going to be doing circuits and stuff, you know.
Right. So I want to hit one more, and this is, I think, good advice for anyone out there who is not kind of familiar with Japan or the Japanese scene. 5 do's and or don'ts that you would suggest for musicians coming to Japan. Let's start with Eki.
I would say first thing would be just to be mindful and respectful of the country, and that would go for traveling. I would say to anywhere, but do a little bit of research, you know, reading blogs or travel books, and you know, something simple like I just brought my kids here the other day, and my 15-year-old dropped a tissue on the ground and walked by. I said, no, 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 you pick that up. You know, look how clean the street is. This is not, you know, you got to, you know, clean up after yourself. So that would be one. Second would be to meet as much as you can with other musicians. So I didn't know anybody. All of this started from one person who responded to my Google request in October of last year. And from that, spurred on just sort of a jellyfish tangled, you know, tentacles reaching outwards, kind of connections to so many people. So I was literally on Google, Facebook groups, Instagram, and tailoring it sort of to what my interests were musically and outside of that, and just sending emails and reaching out to people. And once you're there in Japan, another way to do that is just be on the ground, going to open mics, live house shows, art galleries, whatever your interests are. Just get out and interact with people. I find is really important. And then, goodness, I think it's nice if you can either, maybe you have a translator or access to that. Google Translate became my best friend during recording. But if you can, learn a few sentences about, how to introduce yourself, Ekides, yoroshiku onegaishimasu, where you're from. If you speak one sentence of Japanese, the appreciation and the adoration that you receive, it's really sweet. And yeah, I think that would be it. Those are all do's. Just get out and have fun and explore and meet people. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And let's move to Michelle.
Yeah, I agree totally with Eki. And even if you're there for a short time, just watch, listen, learn about the culture and how to express yourself within it. It's not like you don't have to cramp your style, but just be mindful that, you also don't have to express every single thing that you're feeling. I would definitely say don't openly display displeasure or disgust with anything. You can display surprise, like, oh, like, wow, is that what you do? But not like, ew, ew, that's just, but I consider that to be basic good behavior anyway. You wouldn't do that in any country, So, just to understand that maybe the things that they do or the things they like are going to be different to what you do and what you like. Be grateful. Just be appreciative, even for the smallest things. I've been moved to tears in Japan. People have done things beyond the call of duty, beyond the call of kindness, just beyond the call of humanity. My husband and I needed to get to a train station. We kind of knew the way. But I just stopped at a shop and asked a lady, like I just needed her to say left or right. She stopped. She told the owners of the shop, I'm going out, and she took us to the place we needed to go. She was excited. My husband's Egyptian and I'm not Japanese, and it was something different, but it was also extremely kind, extremely kind. I've had people run after me with change, jogging after me to give me back change or things. You don't tip. If you're in Kyushu, don't tip.
Oh, yeah.
Oh God, they don't take tips. We left some change on a table and this little lady was jogging after. I was like, whoa, that was more trouble than it was worth. I just caused her, and I was a nuisance. So don't tip. They don't like it. But be kind. Oh yeah, kindness is gonna work. And loving. Japanese are no different to anybody else. To be loving, just be loving. Mm-hmm. Don't have expectations. Sorry, I forgot that one. Because things change. No expectations. Again, I mean, most of my do's and don'ts when Duane sent them, I said to him, to me, my do's and don'ts are just basic good behavior. Don't have expectations because things are going to change. And when they change, you're going to roll with it. End of story. Just roll with it. Yeah. And that makes it easier for them because they take it personally when you're upset with something. Like, oh, what? If we're late? Oh, somebody's going to feel like, oh my God, it's my fault. That's how they are. The rest of us would be like, oh no, what are we going to do? Like, we kind of rally and see what we can do and support each other. But they know if somebody's going to take that personally, it's their fault. They shouldn't have done it. They're going to kill themselves tonight, and then it'll be something terrible. So just chill.
Japanese pride themselves on what's in Japanese referred as omotenashi, hospitality. And so they do their best to, especially for visitors, tourists, to, show a good time, to give an impressive, memorable experience. And so be appreciative of that experience, of that effort. Moni, how about you?
Yeah, basically on par with the other ladies' comments, but with maybe learning. If you're a band, we found that it was easy if we learned a few phrases that could assist us when we have sound checks. So with the sound techs, instead of just assuming that they're going to have to understand us with English, we would attempt to say it in Japanese, and then we get on the same kind of track, and they'd figure out what we were trying to say. But those little efforts, helped make long-term partnerships with those sound techs, and we can use them again in the future. And we, they know what we like and we know how they work. So that's one thing I would suggest to bands. Another just common sense thing, not even a Japanese related thing, is make sure you're watching the bands before and after you, because it's not just a polite thing to do, but it's also a networking thing, whether there's a language barrier or not. We've formed partnerships and friendships with the bands that we've played and that have opened for us or we've opened for, and they're long-term partnerships that lead to other networking situations, and it just snowballs. So just put the time in. You're in Japan anyway, you might as well watch the band and get to know the people that you're playing on the night with. And one other thing is just another general courtesy thing, but just amplified more so. On Japanese public transport, it's silent. So even if you're just having a quiet general conversation, it's too loud. So just dial it back, text message it to your friend. If you're next to each other, just play the game of what Japanese people expect, because you're not at home.
Exactly.
Right.
Can I add one thing?
Sure.
Just to add to what you said, Moni, that's so true, about the connections with musicians. One thing I didn't anticipate as much was how other musicians have been so willing to connect me to those who are in the industry. So
Yes.
I did a collaboration with a DJ. We connected through Bandcamp. I don't know if you know Bandcamp, but it's a site where you can distribute your music and sell. And I always thank people who purchase my music. And so we started talking. He's a DJ in Tokyo, and he said, "Well, come, I'll spin your tracks you sing live." And I did. It was awesome. It was so fun. But then after that, I don't even know when he did it, or because I didn't see him. He was at the table the whole night. But one after one, the business owners came up to me from the venue, and we said, we heard about you from the DJ, and we want to connect you to so and so. So this is just, musicians and artists helping one another. And so I'm
Definitely.
really appreciative of that. And that, that was.
And I want to jump very quickly on what Eki just said, because I'm finding myself having to explain this a lot more now. It's artists and musicians helping each other.
Yeah.
So me as my company, Shalestone Music, or me as a person operating here in Japan as a business looking to make money, cannot receive the same type of benefits that musicians working among themselves can. And the reason is because I'm a business. Once I get in, they're like, huh? Why aren't you, putting in money or investing money or doing something? So it's artists working together that's really important. And when they make a connection with you, then you can count on that connection as gold. You can roll with it, and, they will introduce you to other people. Okay, so we have a few minutes left. If anybody has questions, your audience, you're free to turn your cameras on now. If you have any questions you want to ask, you can go ahead. I have a few minutes left. Or if any of the panelists, you have anything to add, feel free.
I'd like to add something about live streaming, if that's okay. There's an app. I don't work for the app. I do work for the app, but I'm not paid to do this. And it's called 17 Live. I got on it during the COVID time because all my gigs just canned in one go, like bang, Egypt just shut down. And from that, I found a huge number of Japanese musicians, and I actually released 2 singles with a guy. I've never met him, and he's already booked me. He knows I'm coming for the Kansai Music Conference, and he's booked me in a club in Tokyo. And I just want to also mention, like, as Eki was saying, the power of the musicians with musicians, and also what we do for each other. Like, we did this collaboration. We've got a 3rd song coming out. We're, all on Spotify, blah, blah, blah. But he wasn't au fait with that type of thing. A lot of Japanese aren't. They don't do it. They do other things, but they don't do what we do, what we call just standard music behavior. Even if whether you agree or disagree with it, irrelevant. You got to get your stuff out, and it goes out on these platforms. If it's not out, they'll just take it anyway. So you might as well put it out. And these things, like, and also exactly what you were saying, Duane, you know, you get the contract and it says, you can't work for anybody else and you're not allowed to do this and you're not allowed to, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They're going to meet me and they're going to know me and then they're going to book me. And Duane and all the other businesses know that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen. Whether they book you under another name in a different way. And this is why I think these connections are powerful, because we come in. I'm here with Duane. I like Duane. I want Duane. I want Duane in my life. I want what he does and the people like him in my life, because they're giving me what I can't find. I got musicians coming out of my ears, but they can't book me unless it's a little club that they know and the guys that they know. Duane has the big arm. These companies can do the marketing, the media, and that I think is a really important differentiation. Otherwise, I just sit there and rest on my laurels and just go, listen to me. Yeah, you're amazing. We'll book you. There's a lot more to it than that. And that's when you want a company to come in.
So any final comments? Moni?
Don't hesitate. Take a chance on Japan. If you're thinking about it, there's obviously a gut feeling. You've got a reason that you want to go to Japan and perform. Why not try it?
Eki?
I totally echo that. And if anyone has any questions at all, I'll drop my email and website in the chat. Feel free to reach out and help any way that I can.
And Michelle?
Yeah, I echo Moni and I don't echo Eki because I can't help you, so don't contact me, please. Not an agent. Everybody seems to think you know, like, yeah, I'll contact that, please. And anything I have, I do put it on my social media. I do sort of talk about stuff regularly, so, you know, pop in and see that. But yeah, if you're feeling it, just go, you know. And Kyushu, super cheap, super affordable. You know, it's not all Tokyo. Everything isn't Tokyo. Don't feel like, oh, I can't afford to go. Yeah, you can. You can. Trust me, you can.
And spread the word about KMC.
Yes.
So I've been telling that to all my, fellow musicians back home in California who've been dying to come to Japan. It's like, well, you can. So this is a great way to do it.
Yeah,
So,
Shalestone has got a book, can help you book tours. Yeah.
Great, thanks. So for those of you who are not familiar with KMC, it's an organization, music conference that started in 2009. And this year, Moni Lashes will be doing a drum clinic and performance. Eki, actually, all three of you are actually performing in some way or another on October 6th. So yes, you'll be able to see each other in person
in Kyoto.
on October 6th in Kyoto. Yes. Great.
That's very cool.
So thank you so much for joining today, and please tell your friends about this panel, which the recording will be put up on the KMC website. So for those people who missed, they'll be able to check it out. And again, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. And looking forward to October KMC. Thanks.